Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Cook County Board of Commissioners regular meeting, starting at 8:30 this morning on Tuesday, July 8th. We begin our meeting with the pledge. Please rise if you can.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, I'll have a, I haven't heard any, okay?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. At this beginning of our meeting, we have a little bit of time for public comment. If anyone would like to come up and be at the microphone, sign in, please, and I'll give you 5 minutes.
Okay, did pen number 2.
We won't include that as your 5 minutes.
Took me that long to sign my name. Good morning, my name is Tracy Benson. I'm here today on behalf of the EDA. I knew originally one of your agenda items is a resolution, and now it's actually a contract approval, and that caught the EDA, the resolution caught the EDA board a little bit off guard. And in thinking this through and having our special meeting last week, what I identified from that is that potentially we have a communication issue. And so today I'd like to just quickly give for all of the county commissioners a little bit of an update on what we've done so far and where we're headed and what we see with this project. So first of all, just to let you know, this BAN is sort of an informal group in 2023, considering what we could do with Taconite Harbor. And a group of us went down to Minnesota Power. That included Bruce Martinson and Greg Vestergaard. We had a meeting with Minnesota Power to find out a little bit about where they were at with everything. The most important thing I took away from that, which was an open question, is they own the land, we do not, they will not be giving it to us. And that is a huge point for all of us. We then went back to the EDA. We asked for official approval to start this project. We then met with Schroeder Township and kind of began the conversation there, let them know where we were at, brought them into it, and I believe we went to Tofty too, I'm not sure. Realizing the complexity of this work, then we began attempting to secure grant funding for this. This isn't just like a part-time admin to do this. And we didn't have a lot of luck, so when we hired Teresa Baida, EDA director, we had her prioritize her work, and we said, when everything else is done, will you please help us find grant money for this, which she did. And that's where we are today in the contract in front of you. This is a visioning project. This whole purpose is to identify the issues around that property and then explore possibilities. It's very long-term planning. We do not expect from this preliminary planning to have a set plan in place with actual buildings going up. What we're going to look at is, can we set the stage to create a thriving community in the West End? Can we take steps to diversify our county's economy? Can we expand our self-sufficiency? Can we bring new opportunities to our residents and attract new families? And then really, how much of that land would we even need? We don't know. The EDA held a special meeting last week, and of course, as you know, we are now without an EDA director, but in that special meeting, most of what we discussed was the plan that the chair has already put together to secure EDA administration. And we expect next week at our July 15th meeting to be able to sign off on that. And then we can begin a search. But what we have in place will really be able to do just about everything we could do up to this point. We did their some of the reasons we picked Stantec, just to let you know, was because of their prior project work with Minnesota Power, which has been a lot, so they have a lot of familiarity with the area. Their inherent understanding of those kind of land issues and potential uses. They've also done a lot of large-size work projects like this, including the other coal-based plant communities that are going around the state, like Becker. And then, hopefully, their ability to introduce us to some innovative business ideas that we don't typically see here. And that's, to me, one of the bigger things I would love to have them help us with. So right now, where we're at, we're putting together a stakeholder list for them. I've got a huge Excel spreadsheet. And also, today is number one for an improved communication plan, which is why I'm here today. And tomorrow night, we'll be with the Schroeder Township Board again, so we can give them an update of where we're at. And I want to make sure that a communication plan with all of our local media is an ongoing with this project. And as you saw in the contract, we have a timeline. We might need to, adjust that. And that's where we're at. So that was my update, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have any of the commissioners received any comments they want to share? No? Okay. Moving on to item 3, the consent agenda. We have 2 items. Does anybody want to pull anything?
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 4, MCIT Annual Report. Do we have anybody here?
Ready?
Brady? No?
You should be. Haven't heard from him.
Oh,
Oh, maybe.
maybe that was it
Yeah.
just for information?
No, his intent was to be here.
Okay.
Maybe we can just
We can come back
do
if
that when he
if
comes,
shows
moves
up.
in, yeah.
Move it to another time frame.
Well, he may show up later, so
Okay.
I'd keep an open
Well,
mind.
let's see, I'll make a note that, MCIT, okay. When he comes, you'll know him, Brady, so.
Yeah, he'll
you can give us a
identify
heads up.
himself. Yeah,
Okay.
he's been here.
We'll just move that on. All right. Then, going from MCIT to MIS report. Update, which we always have an annual one by Rowan.
Good morning.
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 One.
All right. Yep. Okay, so today, as Madam Chair said, we have an annual update. And the things that I'll look to cover, not necessarily in this order though, an overview of the MIS department. MIS is Management of Information Systems. Commissioner White once told me she thought the M in MIS might stand for mysterious, so we'll hopefully shed some light on that.
It's for the listening public.
What we
I
do.
now know that.
Yes, of course. And then we'll talk about our mission, our vision, and strategies that support the mission and vision from a strategic planning sense of the words, how we align our operational and project work to those strategies, what some of the results have been over the last year, and then we'll talk a little bit about projects that we have going forward. So that's rough outline, and if there's any questions at any time, feel free to stop me and ask, and we'll move right along. So MIS, Management of Information Systems, and our mission, again from the strategic planning sense, is providing technology solutions that enhance the delivery of county services. And we do this by driving innovation and overseeing the development of new products and services across the organization. We also need to maintain efficient and secure IT operations to ensure compliance, industry standards, and regulations. And we also do all of this with a focus on financial stewardship. And that means continuously working to optimize our technology investments, managing our vendor relationships effectively, and then working closely with other departments to ensure that our initiatives support their overall goals and objectives. As the technology leadership team for the organization, we're responsible for safeguarding our digital assets, and we play a key role in maintaining the integrity of operations across the organization. And we do all of this with a relatively small staff of 6, and we are able to do that through project management, continuous risk assessment, and strategic planning. And we're really lucky to do that, be able to do that, because in large part of the staff that we have. We have a natural culture of continuous improvement, curiosity, extremely talented team that has a really wide background. And employee retention and institutional knowledge is a huge part of that as well. Between the 6 of us that make up the MIS department, we just looked this up, we have a combined 76 years of working with the county from amongst the 6 of us that make up the department. So within the department, we have sort of 3 distinct service areas. The IT, which is information technology, GIS, or geographical information systems, and radio communication. High-level IT includes our internal network, things like our fiber, servers, switches, firewalls, infrastructure that connects and secures our buildings and systems and data. It also includes the procurement and integration and support of end-user equipment and software. You can think laptops, phones, PCs, printers, productivity applications and software like Microsoft Teams, Office 365, SharePoint, Help Desk, and a whole host of department-specific tools. And then GIS is everything geospatial or map-based. So it's next-gen 911 and how 911 caller data is displayed to our dispatchers when people call 911, to districting for fire departments based on response time from fire halls, to redistricting for commissioners based on census data. All of that is GIS based. It also includes operational things like parcel splits and tons of custom built web applications, both department specific and public facing. Probably the most widely used and familiar one would be our tax parcel finder app. And then on the radio communication side, the radio communication program supports and manages multiple public safety communication systems, as well as a huge amount of critical infrastructure that supports all types of wireless services throughout the county. Services that include cell service, broadcast radio like WTIP and NPR, and the Armor system, which is used by every single public safety entity that operates within the county. So not just county organization, but every public safety entity, state and federal. And additionally, through contract management and policy, the radio communication program provides tower site property management and management of the tenants who use the towers and facilities to provide all those different wireless services. And going back to the strategic planning portion, this is our vision. And as a vision should be, it's aspirational or a benchmark that we align our work to. So it's a goal that we work towards, we align our daily work and our projects to. It's what we strive towards. Great services, always available. And it comes into play when we're making decisions about what products or services we select or recommend. Can we make it a good service, a great service, and make it available? And then these are the strategies that support our mission and vision. And we align our and categorize our projects and our work within these strategies to support the mission and vision that we have as a department. And so the first one is infrastructure excellence, and it's arguably the most important one. It's foundational and underpins all the rest. Without a baseline of stability from our infrastructure, our ability to deliver on the other strategies and services we have is going to be really hampered. The infrastructure we manage supports tons of critical services like 911, public safety radio communication, elections being reported back, courts, public health and human services, and more. And because of that, the strategy, the way that I look at it, is not just about technology, but it's also about public trust and fiscal responsibility and our ability as an organization to deliver the services that the community relies on. Without that solid infrastructure, our ability to deliver on the services that we need to is really limited. So projects that would align with this strategic goal, redundancy of systems. So if we have a fiber cut, 911 still works. If a piece of equipment fails, court can still continue and election results can still be reported in a quick way. Security, both physical and cyber, would fall under that. Regular replacement schedules of infrastructure equipment, servers and things like that, but all the way up to communication towers, big infrastructure replacements. And then the next strategy is processes, departmental and operational policies, operational processes, how we do things, and the service level agreements that we have with other departments that really define roles and responsibilities and what to expect. The benefits of having these and doing these well is consistency and clarity on how things get done and who's responsible for what. It drives efficiency and productivity, makes sure that things are being done in an efficient way, and when you're documenting your processes and reviewing them on a regular basis, you can continually improve in that way. It also ensures that we're writing into our processes compliance and security requirements as those things change, and making sure that we're covered from that perspective. Training and knowledge retention is huge there as well. So when you spend the time and the work to figure out how something works and to make it work well, that you document it so that when you have turnover or things change, you don't have to relearn that. And then broadly, once you have all those things together and you really know kind of the full scope of what your processes are and you're responsible for it, really helps with informed decision making, because you know the full scope of what your department is responsible for. Our third strategy that supports the mission and vision is e-government solutions. And this is just the use of technology to facilitate interactions with the organization. Some current examples of our e-government solutions would be GIS project resources, our open data portal, and other self-serve public-facing tools. E-permitting is a huge one. Lodging tax with the auditor's office, physical address permit with emergency management, entrance permit or special road use permit with the highway department, or one of the many permits administered by land services. All those different ways that you can interact with the county online through technology. Online payments, some other examples of that, a wide range of different things that you have the ability to pay for. Airport, community center, court, property taxes, revolving loan fund, PHHS programs like Wilderness Outpatient, all of those, the ability to pay online through systems and infrastructure that the MIS department supports and puts forward. Our fourth strategy is mobile services, and this one's really an intersection of all three service areas, IT, GIS, and radio communication. So you can think of it from the tower management perspective, which has requirements for co-location in our tower ordinance and the development of tower districts to help support that, and encourages and manages the expansion of wireless services in a sustainable and conscientious way, financially sustainable and environmentally conscientious way. it provides the network and connectivity for a whole host of applications, many that are developed and managed in-house by GIS, that run on mobile devices that are managed and maintained to a certain extent by the IT side of the house, and are entering data and uploading it back into databases that, again, are managed by IT. So it's all three of those things working together to provide services where we can more efficiently and effectively operate out in the field, continuing to work together. And then our last one is customer service excellence. And it's just that. It's regular replacement schedules to make sure that equipment is working well for staff and that people are having a good experience with the equipment that we issue them. Providing training resources so people know how to use the tools that we have that are available for them. And support, including remote support, so that with a limited number of staff, we're able to support a lot of people quickly. So then we'll take a little bit of a closer look at each service area. On the IT side, there's 3 staff: the system administrator, a IT technician, and a help desk specialist. And we kind of break it into kind of three groups of service within that service area. And so the end user and web services, all the laptops and PCs and other hardware that are built and replaced and supported throughout the year, keeps employees productive and minimizing technology-related disruptions. It's support for office and department-specific applications. We maintain and troubleshoot essential software across all of the county departments. Things like our SharePoint, which is centralized data and really improves teamwork and information access across the organization. Things like Microsoft Teams that are it's chat, it's video conferencing, integrated phone systems that really enhance communication and reduce the barriers for remote or hybrid work. And then on the network and server infrastructure side, it's everything being connected. So it's the routers and firewalls and servers and switches connecting to phones and computers, and it's everything keeping the county technology systems working together and ensuring seamless communication and productivity across the organization. It's also security, where we really put the investment in protecting the county's data and systems from threats of unauthorized access. Just safeguarding the sensitive information that we're responsible for, as well as meeting compliance requirements and maintaining public trust with the data that we have of theirs. And then on the help desk side, it's incident management, where we log, track, and resolve IT issues, trying to reduce downtime and improve services. We do request fulfillment, so it's requests like new user setup, new software, changes in access, all those different things. And then user support, providing guidance and troubleshooting for technology use, really trying to empower the staff and boost their confidence and improve the adoption of the tools that we have across the organization through that. And then on the GIS side, again, this is one person, a GIS analyst, and it's hard to understate how large of an impact GIS has on the organization. Roughly 80 to 90% of the county data, you could argue, is GIS data. And so when we talk about property data, wells, permits, tax information, et cetera, it's all GIS. Highway department information, including roads, culverts, center lines, bridges, all those different things, that's GIS data. Our public safety uses GIS integration with the dispatch system and inside the deputy squad cars. Emergency management for evacuation pre-planning, all those things have GIS component. And our GIS analyst is the keeper and builder of that data, ensuring its accuracy and availability for those important services. It is also the GIS portal I mentioned that includes that public gallery with several different mapping applications, including categories with multiple applications inside each category for things like transportation, recreation, public safety, and home and property. So GIS really offers just tons and tons of data that's crucial for operational work of the organization, but also takes all that data and puts it out to the public in a way that they really benefit from having access to it. A good example of it that I just used recently would be for a fire department that wants to do a fundraiser or a recruitment drive, getting an accurate and updated mailing list of who lives within your district. You know, that's a tool that we've built and put forward so that we can quickly and easily generate a mailing list of everyone that lives within this geographical area that is our fire district. And so there's a lot of benefits that we push forward to the public through GIS as well. And then on the radio communication side, again, this is one person, a radio communication analyst, and through the radio communication program, MIS manages a very large amount of critical communication infrastructures. We have 12 county-owned towers and 6 additional towers that we oversee for a total of 18. And these towers are essential for emergency services, public safety, and day-to-day operations. And through the establishment of a dedicated radio communications program, we've implemented vision, policies, and operational guidelines that allow us to effectively manage and maintain this infrastructure. Historically, these towers had represented a significant liability to the county, financial liability. There wasn't a replacement mechanism set up, funding for it. A lot of them were built on grants, grant funded, with no kind of operational process for how these would be replaced eventually. And because of the lifespan of them, being replaced every 50 years or so, that's something that's maybe a little easier to leave for the next person. And we've really worked hard not to do that. And so through the development of that program and by managing tenant contracts and our partner relationships, we've turned it into a strategic asset that generates revenue. And the revenue then helps offset the associated costs with tower management, public safety communications, and replacement, ultimately reducing the burden on the taxpayer and the levy. The program also prioritizes environmental stewardship, ensuring that the essential services provided by these towers are balanced with the need to preserve the natural landscape. So it's minimizing the impact to the view shed, keeping towers below 200 feet where possible to eliminate lights, driving co-location. So if you can be on an existing tower, our tower ordinance requires that. If you can't, but you can provide coverage for the service area that you're trying to accomplish, we're looking to put you within a communications district so they're located close together and minimizing having towers pop up all over the place. And that large approach, the idea behind it is that our critical infrastructure continues to serve the community effectively, providing reliable communication services that are vital for public safety and community well-being now and well into the future. So in addition to those 18 communication towers that we manage, the 12 owned and 6 non-county owned, the 10 tower districts, and the contract management associated with it, with those tenants, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, multiple federal and state agencies, broadcasters like WTIP and NPR, local contractors, all of it. The radio communication program also supports over 800 mobile devices, radios and pagers. So this is supporting communication for the sheriff's office, the highway department, all the volunteer fire departments, search and rescue, Grand Portage and their government that uses those radios. We support that as well. The school, ISD 166 hospital, large events like the Lutsen 99er, and even our radios are used in the John Bear Grease, which crosses jurisdictional lines. We provide the support and management for all of those. And the benefit there is that it really enhances coordination and response during daily operation and emergencies. It's a really effective approach to managing communications that happen within the county. This individual, the radio communication analyst, is also the county armor administrator, and so they manage the statewide radio network and components of it for everyone under our participation plan. And that's all those same users that I listed. It's not just the county, it's the school, it's Arrowhead Electric, it's the hospital, it's Grand Portage. And so we provide that service for all of them as well. If they need something from the armor system that they're not getting, we help facilitate that. And then lastly, it's the county paging system, and this is the system that we use to alert and wake up our volunteer responders when they need it. And it's a dedicated system that we own and control end to end. And the value and importance there is that just that, we own it and we control it. So if there's a fiber cut, instead of relying on something like I Am Responding, when cell phones might not work to wake up firefighters in the middle of the night when there's a fire, we own this system to ensure that it works and we're not subject to that. Cell companies have maintenance windows that they pick, in the middle of the night where they just take things down. They don't need to tell you. That's just part of the contract, often, between midnight and 4 a.m. And so if they were doing that and we were relying on a system like that without notice, I Am Responding or those other notification systems, they're supplemental, they're nice, but the paging system is the primary one that makes sure search and rescue, ambulance, firefighter, volunteers get woken up in the middle of the night when they need to be and dispatched out. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about financials for the last year. So in 2024, the total expenditure across all three divisions or service areas was $1.2 million, and that includes payroll for the department, but it's software, professional contract services, and capital across the organization. We're buying those things for the rest of the whole organization. But also includes things that you might not think about, like utility and snow plowing for access out at all of those tower sites. So it's a wide range of things that we purchase and pay for the organization. And then some of the highlights in revenue. In 2024, we had $83,000 in revenue from IT. And the majority of revenue from IT is billed back to PHHS for the work that we do, that they then in return bill back to the state, and we get reimbursed for that work. And that'll be important about how we record and track work, and we'll show some of that later on the operational side of the things that we do. And then on the radio communication side for revenue, currently we bring in about $250,000 in revenue annually on the radio communication program. That's through tower leases, tenants that are on our towers providing services, but using our infrastructure to do so. And right now we have it roughly at a 4-to-1 split between capital and operational. So we're setting aside about $200,000 annually so that we can do tower replacement and other things. And we're setting aside about $50,000 annually to offset operational costs and just try to keep those costs down. And we think that's about the right balance for where we're at right now. So it's growing every year through things that we've built into the contracts, annual escalators to keep up with inflation and other things like that. And it's slowed down a little bit in the last few years, but we're doing things like replacing some of our older towers and other things that will allow, hopefully, services to expand and to continue to grow that revenue that offsets those costs, continue to hopefully maintain enough capital that we're always going to be in a good place to replace the infrastructure that we're responsible for, but even add to pushing operational costs down even further is the goal. But right now it's roughly about $1 million every 4 years in revenue being brought in. And then one other one I wanted to highlight and touch on was in September of last year, we received our award letter for the state armor grant. I mentioned this and talked about it, but the grant period is 2024 through 2026, and the $389,000 in funds will be used to replace armor radios across the county. Mostly volunteer fire departments that, besides donations and fundraisers, rely on levy dollars. So again, pushing those costs down the best that we can. And so I wanted to share it all again, just to talk about, hopefully, share the services that we provide and the way that we try to do it in a fiscally responsible way, and try to keep things as best we can from that perspective as well. And then, important to just show this again, to say that it's not typical in every county that these three services are managed collectively together, and it really is a Venn diagram where you get benefit from each. IT working with GIS in a really collaborative way yields a lot of benefits. We'll see that in the projects that we've done and projects that we have going forward. And the same with IT and radio communication, or radio communication working with GIS. And then, that example of people using GIS built applications on IT devices out in the field, getting service from radio communication managed tower sites, is really where all three intersect. But the value that we get from managing these three services together is really huge. And it's something that I'll always advocate for and think that it's really important. I'm happy to talk about the benefits of. So getting into some of the work that we did in the last year, we did 20 large projects completed, with several underway this year. Some were planned and some were mandated to us. And then on the operational side, help desk, we recorded just over 2,700 tickets last year. That's up almost 1,000 tickets from last year. It was just a significant amount of operational work. And that's in addition to, the regular operational work we do, regular replacement of laptops, PCs, server, et cetera, all those different things. 2,700 tickets on top of that as well. And tickets can range from something really simple to forgot my password, or I can't print, to something where, like, an onboarding ticket is a single ticket, and it includes creating accounts and permissions, providing access to all the different teams and data sets that they need, getting them all their equipment that they need, providing training to the new users. So a wide range of what tickets mean. And I should also say, these are total help desk tickets, so this includes MIS, but it also includes facilities. They receive tickets through our help desk system as well, HR and payroll and communications. Our public information coordinator, Todd Ford, also receives them through this. We have a little bit of a breakdown of that. We'll show that. This is a little small and hard to see, but we track the operational work, specifically the tickets, a few different ways through the help desk system and run reports on it. And so this is how we track total tickets grouped by department. And so we can see where we're spending our time. We do it for a few different reasons. If you're seeing a disproportional amount of time being spent with a certain department, maybe you start to ask why, right? So you look at, is there equipment failures? Is it training needs? What is it? What's driving this? And so you can see here roughly 32%, 33% tickets in the last year, PHHS. And, for the size of the department, the staff, and then you factor in things like, the rate of turnover and other things, it's about where it should be. A lot of turnover, new staff, different things like that. It's in the ballpark. You look at the sheriff's office, not as big as staff, but they're a 24/7, 365 department. And so, they're not just typically Monday through Friday, so there's more time spent there and potentially more needs. So it's just different ways that we leverage the data we have to make sure that we're doing what we need to do and getting the departments that they need, what they need. And the other one that we do is we then break down those same tickets by department and by service group. So you can see, is it my technology? Is it, how much of those are facilities and maintenance requests? How many of them are, network issues, shared technology? And it's the same thing. It's just showing us, if we're seeing a disproportionate amount of network or infrastructure issues related to a certain department, we need to relook at a piece of equipment or a network configuration or replacement schedule. If it's a my technology issue that's way disproportionate with one department, maybe we need to look at how we're training people. Do we need to do a new training because we've had a lot of turnover? Maybe we need a different application that meets their needs better, different things like that. So it helps guide us in making sure that we're providing great services that are always available. And then on the project side of the house, of the 20 projects that we did last year, we categorize them and track them by strategic goal. And since we've been doing this for a while, we can see that we've done 260 projects over the last 10 years, and we continue to track that. So we're a little under on our average, but last year we were above, and our operational work this year was really high. But in the tracking, 30% of the projects that we did last year were infrastructure projects. And then 20% process and 20% e-government strategic goals, and then customer service and mobile services, 15% each. And so we track those projects by strategic goal. We also track our projects by customer, and so 35% of the projects that we did last year were enterprise. They benefited the full organization. A lot of infrastructure projects would be categorized under that, something that benefits the entire organization. 30% department specific, so like CaseWorks, the EDMS or electronic document management system that was just implemented in PHHS. We spent a lot of time working and billing on that. That would be an example of a department specific project. 15% multiple departments, so things like the mandated projects that we needed to do for the criminal justice information system. Both the attorney's office and the sheriff's office are departments that access the criminal justice information system and therefore required those things that are mandated for us. So that would be an example of a multiple department project. And then 10% citizen and 10% just locally to MIS projects related just to our own processes. And then briefly an example of what's planned for within 2025. And so we're looking to expand our e-government services through RT Vision. Vacation rental process in the auditor's office is underway. That's new. And then we're also working on a partnership with the city of Grand Marais to automate the workflow and the sharing there, where they're actually entering things into RT Vision for us so that our land services and assessor's office automatically gets notified of processes that they need to, just really improving that information sharing. Well underway there. Improve patch management, make sure that we stay on top of not just our operating system Windows patches, but third-party applications as well. And then we're going to look to continue to improve our end user support and training. Department depth and overlap is another one for us. We're one deep in a lot of areas, and we use cross-training as one way to really help with that. We also leverage service providers to help provide backup for us when people are out of the office or on vacation and things like that. But in 2025, we're looking at changes to how departmental positions are structured. and potentially moving towards a tiered system, specifically in IT, where you might see, instead of those 3 unique positions, a ITSL 1, 2, and 3, where you have the ability to move up. So at some point, instead of having a single system administrator that knows the networks and servers, you might have 2, so you can provide that redundancy. So it's something that we're looking at and exploring, and something we'll definitely be looking to talk about in the future. Then we have a whole host of security initiatives that I look forward to presenting in a separate meeting. We're also writing a scope statement that we'll be shopping around to different vendors on updating the property inquiry and tax payment interface to see what that could look like, really provide a little bit better interface for how people kind of see and pay property tax. And then I mentioned the receiving the state armor grant, the speccing, procuring, programming, issuing, training. That will all happen this year for all of those radios. And then by the end of the year, we're also looking at having a redundant path fully redundant path to the law enforcement center and the law enforcement center tower that connects those to the rest of the armor system. And once that would really eliminate a lot of risk that we currently have with a single point of failure for that. And that's a project that is being done in partnership with Arrowhead Electric, MnDOT, the Sheriff's Office, and Highway Department. So it's a really collaborative project with a lot of different partners, but really eliminating a lot of risk that we currently have now for how we provide armor coverage in the city of Grand Marais, how dispatch uses the armor system, and that paging system that I mentioned as well, providing a redundant connection for all of those things. Asset tracking is largely done. Little blue stickers with QR codes on the bottom of every piece of hardware, our laptops, the little monitors you have in front of you, across the board, largely done now. And then lastly, we also have some additional BCA, FBI, criminal justice data requirements that we'll need to be implementing throughout the next year as well. So that's a look at projects we have going forward. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Rowan. It's even more colorfully coded this time. Hopefully you don't run out of colors.
I'll try my best.
I do have a question when you're talking about the towers in the winter for plowing.
Yeah.
Who do you contract the plowers with?
So we go with different contractors, and it's dependent on the area. So we have towers all over the county, and we use different contractors kind of based in that area. So who does plowing up the Gunflint Trail? Those are the guys that we'll reach out to and see if they're interested. Again, year over year, can you plow Mid-Trail? Can you plow Gunflint? Some of it's dictated to us, like Bogus Lake, for example. That's a Forest Service road, and the Forest Service has requirements as to the type of equipment that can be allowed to plow that road. And so we're limited then by the people who have access to that type of equipment. And then, in Grand Portage, we partner with Grand Portage out there to make sure the towers are accessible. East End, West End, same thing. And some that are harder to get or inaccessible, we even work with the Highway Department to open up on a as-needed basis, and then get billed back by the Highway Department for that work.
And you have a budget for that, for the plowers?
We do.
Yeah.
Yep, that's part of within our, when I submit our budget, even though we have 3 distinct service areas, currently it's an IT budget, which is IT and GIS, and then the radio communication budget. And the plowing is within the operational budget, professional contract services, repairs and maintenance within that radio communication budget is where those funds are allocated and come out of.
Okay.
And it's part of that, which I mentioned, the $50,000 a year that offsets that total cost in revenue that we allocate that to as well.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Roland? Commissioner White?
I have a couple. We have one lone person in GIS.
Yep.
What if a plane falls out of the sky and he's gone? What do we do? Right now, like if suddenly he disappears and he can't come to work. What do we do? I mean, what's the backup for this wealth of experience in a one-man show? Like, right now, I know what you're hoping to do, but like, right now. Do we
Right
have
now,
someone? Yeah.
well,
Rena will be available shortly.
we would post to hire somebody as quickly as we could. But really, it's we would have to leverage support from a vendor that provides those services. You know, that's really the only option when you're one deep. If you don't have staff, then you're looking at service provider.
And so
to
at this
help with
point,
that.
we do not have staff.
We have a single
We have no
GIS
redundancy.
person. Nope, and we have a single radio communication analyst as well.
Oh, yes.
And then, you know, so for all those different things, you know, if somebody's gone, sick, vacation, you know, you name it, turnover, you know, somebody takes a new job, career changes, yeah, we're having to figure out how to manage and support those services and systems as best we can until we can get somebody else in there, trained up, brought up to speed, and hit the ground running.
And then I have one more question. You talked about collective management, where we have our the Venn diagram and the overlap.
Yeah.
Which seems most sensible. So how did we get started with that? And why is that not almost universal in governmental systems for communications?
It's a good question. I mean, I think it depends on the leadership that you have at the time when those services are added, to be quite honest. I think if you have an IT director and you look to bring on, you know, GIS and they're not comfortable with it and they don't know GIS, or maybe they're more apprehensive, or maybe they don't have that's more operational IT and less project management IT, they might be more apprehensive to bring that into their department. And you just see that across the state, and different counties have that different ways. And radio communication is probably the one that is the oddest. You know, it is most typically within the sheriff's office. And I know from experience that when the radio communication analyst position was created here at Cook County, when we went from having a private contractor manage those services to us to being a county position, there was a big conversation about that. Should it be within the sheriff's office, or should it be within IT? And you still see that in the financial coding of it. You know, the sheriff's office budgeting codes are all in the 200. And in MIS, the radio communication program that we have is a 221 account and 222. That's left over from the sheriff's office paying vendors, essentially, contracted private citizens to do that work. But the thought was that, you know, it's largely technology based. It's a lot of project management, and that, you know, between the public safety aspect of it, the contract management aspect of it, and the IT management or the technology management of it, that IT was probably best positioned to know and make sure that the job's getting done the way that it needs to get done. And that's how it landed in IT, for us anyway.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rowan. Presentations like this are often, when you're talking about mission and vision and strategies, end up being a semantics buffet, and they aren't necessarily directly tied to the substance of evidence-based operations. And I think that it's evident in the presentation that your operations are informed by what you do and what you learn over time. I have 3 questions. One has to do with e-government services. I know in my first term we were talking about how could we make some of these things available, more user-friendly, and it'd be interesting to know how we compare with the options that are out there that can be presented through e-government services, how we compare in making those available. That's one question. The other question is, when you look at the industry standard, and it might be difficult because it's not necessarily comparing apples to apples when it comes to our expenditures relative to our income. But if you have an industry standard in that regard, you can see how we perform when it comes to generating revenues to balance our expenditures in the department. That's the second. And then the other is when we've seen some of the things that we have done in IT that have enabled us in public health human services to facilitate our filing requirements to be more timely, to make it easier to do, if I'm making this connection correctly, because we were recognized for our response in regard to reporting, and if your department has facilitated that, then that's evidence again of what the department does to contribute to performance that we can celebrate. So those are the 3 issues: the e-government and industry standard, and if in fact our contribution through that department to public health human services is part and parcel in sharing that recognition.
Yeah, well, thank you for the questions. The first question, how we stack up or how we compare in e-government solutions, there's a lot that goes into that. I think there's, when you compare us to metro counties and the resources that they have to bring to bear, there's obviously significant differences there. There's going to be differences in the individual. Ultimately, we play a support role for other departments, and so other departmental leadership and the staff capabilities that they have and their willingness to take on new solutions can be a deciding factor in that as well. An example that comes to mind right now, I think in large part we punch way above our weight. I'll just say that on the top. But as an example of the other side of that, we're looking at right now, the recorder's office is looking at doing e-recording, something that, if I understand correctly, the vast majority of other counties already do, and it's something that we hadn't felt the need to do now, but with a change of leadership in that department, it's something that we're looking to move forward. And that's another e-government solution that we're going to be implementing now, and that's just simply a change in leadership at the department level that wants to do that. The other part is demographics and finding for us in a community, who we serve and certain things, do we want them to be e-government solutions or not? And I think that drives some of the communication and decision making that individual department heads have when they make those types of decisions, that whether or not the investment is worth the interaction that we're going to get from the community to do it that way. But largely, when you look at other rural counties our size and the services that we provide, we stand out doing very well. And the second question on financials, could you expand on that a little bit?
That was just, when you look at industry standard, and it's difficult in some cases because you're not necessarily comparing apples to apples.
Yep.
And the fact that you have 3 departments that are working, collaboratively, that might not be the case. So when you make comparables, you really have to mine out to find the information. But let's just say that sometimes in industry, it's something that is it's affirming and it's a teaching tool. When you look and say, boy, when you look at their expense, and you look at their income that they generate through that department, that ratio, how does it compare in an industry?
Okay, yeah. Again, I'd say we punch way above our weight. And some of that's structural. I don't think other IT or MIS departments that don't have radio communication obviously don't have the ability to generate revenue in the way that we do. I also don't know a lot of other IT departments that are actively seeking grant funding the way that we have and done. I think other departments probably have different structures where they do bill back to other departments. You know, if you're central services and you're just trying to have those conversations about how to keep costs down, but in terms of actually generating revenue, I think kind of the standard that's available to an IT department like us, the IT-specific department, about billing back to PHHS is probably kind of the standard. And so that's what's available to us in terms of that. On the GIS side, you know, we've done a really good job, especially related to pictometry, where we're getting those aerial images and reaching out and leveraging partnerships to offset those costs. Again, not something that I think everybody else does. And I think we do that because we have such good relationships with other community partners. And so we know, for an example, that Arrowhead Electric has a benefit and a need and gets benefit from having updated aerial photography. And it's something that all of our partners, all of our county departments, many of our county departments really benefit from having. And so having that partnership saying, let's do a cost share agreement, bring our total cost down, and give you access to this imagery that we would need to buy anyway, is just another example of where we're doing better than the average, I think, in terms of bringing in revenue and offsetting cost. Financial stewardship.
Yeah. And the third was just the partnership with Public Health Human Services in the reporting, helping to facilitate that if we've seen improvement because of that partnership.
Yeah, I haven't gotten good updates on ultimate reporting, but through doing the casework projects and other projects that we've done with them, where, I mean, for a while they had huge files of paper files where they were moving them around within already limited office space, right? Their space needs are well talked about, and they had files and files. And so creating solutions where they can scan those in and have them and archive them and keep them through the retention period that they need to, but also have them be accessible to the new Caseworks project that we had, which is the electronic document management system. And the goal behind that was exactly that, your ability to manage your documents electronically, share them quickly, effectively, share access amongst individual people within the department who need to have access to it and get those reports done. So I haven't heard that directly, but I've been told that they're very happy with Caseworks. And yeah, I think it's been a good solution. I'm not prepared to take credit for it.
No, just wanting to understand, and primarily, you know, as a board, it's important for us to make the information of what departments do, what individual staff do to the community on two fronts primarily. One is the services that are provided, to understand how we're performing in that regard and as to providing service. So the other is stewardship of their money.
Yeah.
And if those two things are we share those stories, that's hugely important. And when you can see the innovation and the creativity and the invested energy that goes into creating revenue streams as well as enhancing services, that addresses those two things that I think the public want to know. What are you doing for me, and how much of my money are you spending to do it? So.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Rowan, so much for coming before the board again.
Absolutely.
If anybody has any other questions, they can see Rowan a little bit later.
Thank you.
We're going to move on and go from MIS to MCIT. Good morning.
Morning.
You can come up here just where the other presenter was, by the microphone there. Oh, good, handouts, we like those. Thank you.
Keep you away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's like when you go to the restaurant and they hand this to the kids. Keep them occupied.
Thank you.
Good morning.
I got this. I can put this up there if
Sure.
you want.
Yeah, it's great. Well, thank you, Commissioners. My name is Joe Szyminski. I'm a risk management consultant for MCIT, Minnesota Counties Intergovernmental Trust. And I wanted to come and connect with you like we like to every couple of years. Okay, thank you. And talk about MCIT, a little bit about what we are, what we're not, and talk about some of the numbers we're working through as of late. To start out, just some background on MCIT. We're basically your insurance provider for claims for property and casualty and workers' compensation. We are not an insurance company. We're a joint powers entity formed in 1979 during a really tough workers' compensation market. And Cook has been with MCIT since 1981, so a real long-term, great relationship that we've enjoyed. Just some of the things about MCIT, not being a private insurance company, we're not profit motivated. And in fact, when financially sound, we return dollars to our members with respect to this being constituent dollars. We're not profit motivated. We don't advertise. We don't have commissions for sales. And another unique aspect about MCIT is our board is made up of your peers, other commissioners, auditors, administrators. So our board feels the same effects of their decisions that you do in running their own counties. MCIT has coverages that are tailored to government operations. So it's not like the set of private coverages that you get in private insurance industry. And the contribution, we refer to it as contribution versus a premium, but the contributions are priced to provide stability long-term and have enough to pay claims without over-collecting, and that's always a goal that we respect dearly. So we'll talk a little bit more about some of these services that are included with the membership later in the presentation. The next window is talking about commissioners and what the commissioners can do to make a difference and ensure the success of the trust. Some of the items, and I won't read from the page, you can read some of that later, but some of the items is one being learning how coverages apply. And when in doubt, if you're making some decisions and you're not really sure how MCIT coverages apply, don't hesitate to contact me or others at MCIT to walk you through and make sure that we're on the same page as far as those coverages for decisions you're making. Continue to have contracts reviewed through the county attorney's office for risk management considerations, and we also can help on that in the unique scenarios where you want an extra set of eyes on contracts to talk about the concerns from a risk management standpoint. As you just heard, staying alert for data and cybersecurity threats is on everybody's mind. Safety, from the safety standpoint, we'll talk more about workers' compensation rates, which you're doing great on, and continue to encourage safety committees and return injured employees to work programs. This list is not necessarily something you need to start doing either. It's things you want to continue to do well. So, moving forward, I'm going to talk a little bit about reinsurance. And if you're not familiar about reinsurance, it's basically the insurance for the insurance company, or in this case, the trust. So we buy reinsurance to take the edge of the effect of large claims off. So we have what we call a retention or a large deductible. We keep it in-house until it gets to a certain point. For instance, a large storm, and then it goes to the reinsurance carrier. There's a graph here showing constant increase, and this is part of what we're working through. Just with property reinsurance costs, they've gone up 10% due to a 13% rise in property values. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next window, but not that anybody's shocked about property values going up, but it's really affecting the cost to insure the same from the reinsurance standpoint. Some of the things that MCIT has considered to take the edge off of that rise in cost and to feather the effect in back to the members is consider our deductible sizes. And similar to a way you might take your private insurance and increase your deductible to reduce your premiums. We analyze that, and this year we move in the casualty coverages from $850,000 to $1 million for the retention or deductible, and that saved a 20% rise in the premium. It was a 1% increase versus a 21.5% increase. And also in work comp, we changed from a $500,000 retention to a $1 million retention, and that saved $470,000 in premiums. So some of the things we're doing in the reinsurance world to, again, try to feather in the effect versus getting hit so hard with those numbers. In the next window, it talks about insured values continue to climb. And this has to do with the rise in property values. You are already feeling the effects of this because there was an appraisal in 2023. MCIT provides an appraisal of all the properties over $100,000 every 5 years. So with the rise, you had an appraisal in 2023 that would have increased costs. So that is a big part of where the cost increases are from. The rise in costs in material and labors also contributes to the increase in the cost from the reinsurance side of things, and also just that reinsurance aspect that we get hit from. So you're getting hit from a couple different directions in the property world. So with that, the property, there has been some broadening of coverage, some increase or some improved coverage in the way of equipment breakdown. MCIT contracts with Hartford Steam Boiler for the equipment breakdown coverage and for inspections of pressure vessels. And basically, they added some coverages to the coverage document, such as electronic circuitry losses and the cost to maintain a green designation after a claim, and some off-premises equipment breakdown coverage. So some small increases in the midst of all these challenges that we have in the property end of things. In the next window, it talks about rates, and this is the contributions that are charged to the members. And if you look at the graph, you're going to probably have your attention drawn, first of all, to the large drop on the orange bar below, which is workers' compensation. And just to give you some background on that, the reason that changed dramatically is basically a lot of the COVID claims resolved and fell off the system basically from a numbers aspect. And with the 11.2% in property and liability on the upper right-hand corner, that blue bar, that is a lot of what we were just talking about with the increase in the property and the challenges that we're working through there. With all of that, the dividend, as I mentioned, we give money back when the actuaries give us the okay, when financially sound to do so. I've done so for about 30 years straight now, and a solid number there can return to Cook County, as stated on your packet there. Cyber claims. So with the cyber claims, you're going to see on that graph on the lower bar, you're going to see that's the number of claims that we've had for the whole trust year to year, and that's going upward. That's probably not going to surprise anybody. That's a trend upward in the number of cyber claims. And when you look at the large spike from 2023, that's the bad news part of it, but on the good news part of it, it dropped dramatically in 2024, so trending downward. A lot of that, just to give you background on it, is ransomware claims falling off. Just a complete drop in that, and that's kudos to our membership. Your IT department, which is doing a great job, obviously, everybody's is doing a great job on taking care of emails, which is roughly 90%, give or take, of the source of all cyber claims. And I think that all the IT departments and counties are working hard to increase their email filtering and security and training the employees on trying to avoid clicking on the wrong things. And I know I've been humbled with that kind of software several times, and it's constant practice that I think all of our members are doing a good job in. So, any questions? I'm moving through this somewhat quickly with respect to time. Don't hesitate to stop with any questions that you may have.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. I'm wondering, I appreciate the perspective of understanding decision-making and what informs the decisions. And when you're looking to try to manage cost, when it came to going to a larger deductible, if you looked at how many claims that you had and you tally up that total for the year, and you look at your premium, or, you know, what you're paying for the insurance,
Yep.
Going to the change, how has that number been affected by that strategy relative to the total cumulative cost with a higher deductible, but having to pay claims?
That's, in this, I may have not accentuated a lot, but there's actual direct numbers that it changed the total cost from, they gave the percentage point on the casualty claims for how much that changed our premium that we pay to the reinsurance carrier. So it was coming in at the old way of doing things at an $850,000 deductible or retention at 21.5% is an increase in the reinsurance that we would have had to pay, and it changed to 1% increase.
Yeah.
So it went from here to here just by changing the deductible a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's something that is a constant analysis on where that happy middle ground is, and I think that might be where you're going, is at what point do you change it to a higher amount, lower amount, or somewhere in between. And you know, with the work comp, a $470,000 change in the premium is pretty dramatic on that. And it's always that happy ground of how much do we keep the claims in-house versus, you know, handing it off to the reinsurance carrier. It takes a lot of actuarial analysis, and the managers get you know, all these numbers thrown at them from the actuaries and the carriers too. One of the challenges is not only pricing and reinsurance, just a little bit of background, but the number of carriers seems to be reducing, you know, when it comes to governmental operations.
Yes.
There are certain coverages and types of properties that are being cut out. You know, the riskier it is, the reinsurance doesn't, you know, want to cover some of the properties. And so there's an increase in price and a reduction in coverages. And finding carriers to take care of our very specialized, you know, tailored to government operations type of coverages is always a challenge. So there's a lot of work that, number one, goes into how many carriers can we choose from here. We want to develop those relationships, but you know, part of the issue that we have in comparison to what our members have is that we can get drops instantaneously from the private insurance world. Our way of doing our operation is we always want to be there for our members. It's a very long-term stabilized effect. We don't want that stress for our members where you got to go looking every 3 years because it's such a specialized group of coverages. And we have the challenge of trying to make sure that we have enough reinsurers out there that are willing to work with us and that we can get bids from, just so we're not putting our eggs in one basket. So there is so much that goes into that, and it's not just pure number analysis, but there's some analysis that goes into how many competitors are out there that are willing to work with us for specialized coverages.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question. Or.
I remember years where you struggled to find a single
Yes.
reinsurer who would take.
Yeah. Yes, good point. Cyber is one of them. We ended up, you know, changing. We had a prior reinsurer. Travelers was a reinsurer at one point, Hartford Steam Boiler, and we took it in-house as far as the handling of the claims. So we contracted out for the handling of the claims in the past. We took them in-house. We actually had success with the claim handling and getting through those claims successfully. But the reinsurance for cyber alone was a challenge for a short time, and but it's hard to get. You know, you don't have a pool of them. It's not like when you go out to cover your car or your home, you know, where you got 10 or 20 of them to choose from. You have to present your coverages to a company and see if they'll cover you first and what that rate is. Yeah, sometimes you get pricing that basically says they won't cover you. That's just the reality of it. You know, it's too high or what have you. But a lot goes into that, in short.
Yeah. As a follow-up, I had the privilege to be the liaison to MCIT in my first term as commissioner, and I was quickly impressed with the integrity of a process. And you said it in your opening, basically, where you're coming from, any organization or individual for that matter, what it is that you focus on and what your values identified are, determines your direction. And because you are focused not on profitability and on commissions and things like that, but on providing a service in this particular area for governmental entities, your motivation and your mission and vision, you're consistent, and the organization works very, very hard to protect that relationship on a financial basis to provide the service at the least possible cost. Another question I would have is that if you look at that years of service from 1979, the amount of return to the communities, the counties that you represent, to see how that figure has fluctuated in a challenging marketplace would be interesting.
Yeah, are you referring to the dividend?
Yes.
Yes. Very astute observation. Great questions. I appreciate that. The dividends is kind of a interesting standpoint because the discussion's always going to be, we don't want a large dividend. That can be thought of as over collecting in a way.
Sure.
We want to get that closer to zero. On the same standpoint, or on the other foot, you always have to make sure that you have stability long term. That's just as important to our members, for what I referred to earlier. So we want that happy middle ground of being closer to zero and returning less, so it's less money that we're collecting in the beginning. But we're dealing with volatile markets, and investments can change that, and the number and dollar of claims can change that, and what kind of money is left. In the end, it's positive that at least we can return those dollars, you know, even if the numbers haven't, you know, come in where we hoped or thought they would be. But it's an interesting aspect of what we do, and with that respect to that price, and always remembering that we're working with, you know, a service to the constituents and their dollars, we always, in fact, it's part of our mission statement, you know, reasonably priced services. So there's always a respect there. So I appreciate the comment on that. It is something we take very, very seriously.
Thank you, Drew.
In a couple weeks, we're going to have a photo shoot with MCIT because we're still basking in being the county of the year.
Yes.
So we're looking forward to that. I think we're going to different designated sites, and if anybody thinks of anything else to add to that list. So I appreciate you coming. How far, were you from the cities?
Yes, yes.
Okay, well, I appreciate you coming up here. Thanks so much, and
I do have some more to talk about.
Okay.
Just so you know, and one of them is probably a good part of the reason the County of the Year is a talk, and that's the workers' compensation. One of the things we talk about is the mod rate in these board presentations. The mod rate is your formula that we use to determine your costs, and if you're not familiar with it, it's basically considering your employees and you know, and your experience rating for injuries and work comp claims. And 1.0 is the middle ground, and anything above 1.0 represents maybe an opportunity for improvement, and it's an extra cost. Anything below 1.0 is showing that you're doing well. Your rate is 0.665, which is as low as I've seen with all the board reports I'm giving, to be very straightforward with you. Kudos. That really shows a determination and a lot of effort being put into safety. This isn't just a 1 year average. This is, you know, a couple years worth that are figured into this mod rate. It really shows you're doing well. It shows that you take a lot of initiative, and it takes a lot of constant reminders at all levels to keep safety in the front of everybody's mind. So congratulations on that. The report shows also the cost savings that you have in doing and having such a successful mod rate. Just to talk about a couple other things here, I'll try to get through some of these other things real quickly here, but the chart that talks about claims from 20 to 24 gives you some background on the numbers and values of claims. Real quickly, the sheriff and jail, you see that the number is somewhat high there in comparison to the other departments, but that's to be expected, not necessarily a negative trend, just the way it is, and tough job, 24/7 job. To be expected. They're going to experience more with what they work through. On the lower end of things with property and casualty, the auto claims seems to be quite a bit higher number, but the number of dollars per claim is lower in comparison, and that's part of our unique setup and what we absorb for our members. The law enforcement liability, I don't think anybody needs to be talked about, that this is just a tough environment that we've been working through in the last several years for law enforcement liability claims. In the last section, we talk about some of the other services that NCIT provides, such as risk management and loss control consultants, our resource-rich website. If you haven't looked at our website, do some searches. There's help at all levels, whether it be open meeting law for you or different levels like Health and Human Services running a charity event. They want to know how to work with volunteers. There's a plethora of information in there that was developed, and a lot of effort was put into that during COVID too. And we really developed a lot of information that's at your fingertips. Programs and services, the Employee Assistance Program, which you're doing a great job in pushing to your employees to help them through their issues. And your usage rates are really, really high, showing that you really push that. You know, it's something that's paid for and included with your costs, so it's not an additional cost, and you can provide all that extra help. Your usage rates are 25.18 and 19.51 over the last 2 years. With that usage rate, anything over 4.0 is considered high. So that's very good, extremely good. Another kudos to you. We also have Benchmark Analytics working with risk management for sheriff's offices, workplace injury hotline for triaging work comp claims. Minnesota Safety Council membership speaks for itself. There's a lot of information there. HSB I've talked about with pressure vessel inspections required by the state being included in that contract, and relevant training such as seminars and webinars that we put out on our bulletin, either by us or associated memberships, speakers, and peace officer accredited training online. With that, there's a real solid number there enrolled for the county. And defensive driver training too through the Safety Council. So that's all I have to talk about, unless you have any other questions.
Your webinars are very good, especially when you're this far away.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, not have to drive.
It's,
So,
well, we have a big
appreciate any
state,
of those.
right?
Yeah.
We have a big state, and that's not the first I've heard of that, and thank you for bringing attention to that. Very helpful. Well, we're all watching our dollar, right? It's important to be able to jump online, and they are pretty effectively done. I agree with you, and I really appreciate you pointing that out. It's good to hear the positive comments
more.
on that. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your driving up this way, although it's never dull when you drive along Lake Superior.
I love coming up here. I try to avoid the webinars for coming up here because it's so beautiful.
We want you in person,
Yeah, yeah.
or whoever represents you in a couple years.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you for letting me speak, and it was very nice to talk to you. Excellent questions, and thanks for engaging.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
So we're going to move on to Brooke and Alex, and after they're questioning us about financial things, we'll have a break. So thank you for your patience. We'll start off with Brooke and a furnace replacement. He can explain all that.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Morning.
Morning.
The first one I wanted to go through was, so we have 3 furnaces in the arena section of the curling club. They were replaced some years ago, and they were replaced with the incorrect furnaces. So what we basically have is a high-efficiency condensing forced air furnace in an arena that then freezes. So it produces condensate, which then freezes, so it doesn't work in this application. They decided to just drill a hole in the wall and stick a tube out the wall. So what we do all winter is we go up every morning and we break ice and thaw them out, and so the condensate doesn't then back up, overflow into the ice arena, and ruin the curling surface. So, and the other aspect of it, it's a little bit more expensive because we have to redo the ducting, again, because when they replace it with the high-efficiency furnaces, they just shoved the PVC pipe through the 8-inch duct that was for the unit heater and used some creative caulking and tin work to try and make that waterproof. So we deal with some roof leaks there as well, and so we're just trying to remedy that problem with this portion of this one. Any questions?
Thank you for figuring all that out.
Yes.
If there aren't any questions, I'll hear a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to replace the existing forced air furnaces with the correct type of furnace inducted.
I support.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes unanimously.
And the next item, I'm going to ask for Alex's help on this one. This is the quote for the two adaptive pieces of equipment that I discussed when we did the full replacement of the cardio equipment and the addition of some of the pin weight system. So this is basically the two quotes, totaling, what are we at, about $11,000 and some odd change. The Y is going to contribute $5,000 towards the purchase of the two pieces of equipment, which brings us down to a total of $6,604.02. And I'll let Alex explain what this equipment does.
Yeah, so the New Step and both the New Step and the Octane, which was bought by True Fitness now, they are adaptive pieces of equipment, and they're also patented pieces of equipment. So there's no other organization that does anything like these machines do. The New Step and the Octane is a seated elliptical piece of equipment. Again, accessibility. An accessibility piece of equipment, and then New Step is it's kind of like you use your hands to create the motion. They're heavily used pieces of equipment. However, the two pieces that we have here have been down for at least since I've been here, a little over a year now, and so during the replacement of the approved equipment coming in for the cardio and the weight room, we would like to get those two pieces of equipment replaced as well.
I see that it's through capital purchase funds and the YMCA contributing $5,000. That is very generous.
We really, when I talked to our COO, I expressed the need for these two pieces of equipment. I said we can't go without it any longer. We're already getting the new pieces that we requested before, so we need to put something in. So
Okay, really appreciate it. Questions or comments?
Well, I noticed there's a wide discount on there too, so that's very nice that we can leverage that, so.
I was wheeling and dealing, trying my best.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to replace the broken adaptive equipment.
Support.
Any further questions or comments? Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. When this was brought before us with the other equipment that we had on that, and I think there was some discussion about it, it'd be nice to know, what we're looking at, total package. I think just from a generic statement relative to budgeting and planning, that it would be helpful when we go into the budget cycle if recommendations come departmentally and from organizations as to what we, based upon our our user experience and what our life cycle would be, what we think we need, and then prioritizing based upon what we can afford. And so when that's presented to us, then we look at the big picture going into 2025. This is what we're projecting for the Y. And I understand the connection between when we have opportunities in making some changes, we might want to address additional issues that are correlated, which has to do with the flooring issue. So that's just a statement that it would be nice to know to the extent that we know. And there's always room for the surprises that we discuss and deal with. But otherwise, knowing as opposed to little by little, it's challenging. The other thing I think, just looking historically in relationship with the Y is that the asks that come before this board, I don't think that there's been, and I asked Brady earlier, have there been any, to your knowledge, that have been declined? In other words, have we ever said no? And I think it's just a matter of stewardship of dollars, looking at where we're at, where things are financially, and we want to nurture the relationship, the partnership, provide the service. We need to look at the present market that we're in, the financial aspects of things. So it just generically addressing how these things come to us and how we look at them. The fact that the Y is contributing because it believes in it. I've said before that organizations that work hard to generate revenue to support what they want to do, that certainly bears weight. So I appreciate that contribution. It's just recognizing that processes, I'd like more integrity in the process. So it's not a reprimand, it's just an encouragement.
Yeah, and to answer that one, that's why my narrative for my budget isn't out yet. I mean, I'm going through each individual building and going through lifespan of all the equipment, which is a giant task. I mean, from blacktop and curbing and sidewalk to mini splits and air conditioning. So going forward, I don't think we'll go that direction next year for the 2026 budget, but I'm just kind of prepping for the increase in how we're going to incrementally increase to get to the number we need to for the building fund, so we'll have things covered and we'll know what's coming in.
Okay. We had a motion and a second. Anything else? Right? I lost track. Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. So moving on to the flooring then?
And the flooring, I think, is the one Gary was kind of alluding to. This is a best practice, nice to have. The opportunity came with us changing out the cardio equipment, and it was a request from the YMCA, and we are presenting it today to see if there's an opportunity for us to do the best practice.
Yeah. I would note it's not just a YMCA best practice, it's just a gym best practice. Mostly it comes from the safety aspect of what we currently have, which is the linoleum tiles. If water gets spilled or something, a spray bottle breaks and spills on the floor, that could potentially be very slippery and dangerous. We try and clean up as fast as we can, but so that is where it comes from. Also, it is a good time to just do it with the replacement of the equipment. The rubber gym floor is it's less slippery. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's rougher, right? But still has some cushion to it. If weights fall on the linoleum tiles, they get cracked and we have to replace them. There's been a few tiles that we've had to replace since I've been here.
It's kind of a constant issue of replacing VCT.
Yes. Yep. So, any questions?
I see the money would come out of the Park and Rec Fund, is that right, Brady? for this?
There is money there, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. A question would be that when you're designing a facility, and you'd say, okay, what kind of floor should we put? And there was a lot of discussion relative to what kind of floor would we put in. What would we do? What would be good for tennis? What would be good for jogging, running, whatever, basketball events? What if we have an event and people dance on our floor, whatever? So all of these questions get asked based upon your use. So when it comes to this and the type of flooring, if you looked at YMCA's or you looked at gymnasiums, or we'll call it fitness centers, and you see percent of fitness centers put this flooring in for all those risks, for all those reasons, risk management, it has more give to it, and it just better overall, that it reinforces why this choice.
Yeah, I've run many facilities with gyms, and it's always had the rubber floor. I mean, that was just day one during install, during new construction or remodel. We always did the rubber floor.
Yeah. And the other thing I'd say is that based upon our budget and our pools of money, this isn't new money. This is taking from Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, from the Parks and Rec.
And it's something that in practice, we've sort of done this. It's recognized as not a tongue-in-cheek transfer of funds. It falls in line with that type of expenditure. So this is finding money in a pool of dollars that we have that could be designated for this. Yeah. Okay.
Commissioner White?
So this is not a floor that one would play basketball on?
Correct. It's just in the upstairs cardio room. It is designed for cardio equipment and weightlifting.
Okay.
Commissioner Mills?
My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this is in the capital improvement plan. It's just not, we can't use the bonds for that.
Yeah, it was identified as a lot of flooring projects at the YMCA are all coming to end of life or past end of life, but they were not bonded for replacement in our current CIP bond.
Okay. Yep, thank you. Ooh, speaking of floors, I've had inquiries about pickleball on the gym floor, separate incident, but we're talking floors, and if they're all on a schedule, it'd be good to talk about that. So I'll touch base with you.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? I'll hear a motion then.
I'll make a motion to replace the flooring in the cardio room, in addition to the equipment replacement.
Support.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes unanimously. Thanks so much for waiting, and appreciate your detailing and all the other stuff that goes along with it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
We'll take a 10-minute break.
That was kind of you to share a beverage, too. That's noted.
Well, I demoed the break rooms.
Don't have the knowledge or skill.
We will resume our meeting now and moving on to item number 7. Assessor Bob Thompson is going to talk about abatements. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. So today I have a couple of abatement requests. Bruce Block came in to apply for abatement for the 23 fire down at Sydney's. And so we reviewed that, and we have that on the agenda this morning. We also have another abatement, which was Corey Tisdall and Catherine Edgewood. This is related to the item we had on the County Board of Appeal and Equalization with the cabins on Forest Service land. So those cabins were on that property since 2018 on the assessment record. Catherine Edgewood did not ever reach out and appeal. I think there were some things going on that prevented that, and as soon as, I think it's her nephew who inherited the property, took over there, they noticed that the cabins were on there and reached out to us for an abatement, so.
Okay, all right. Any questions or comments on that? Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd make a motion to approve the 2 property tax abatements as presented.
Support.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Land Services, item number 8.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, this should actually go fairly quick. It's an item that has already been discussed here. I believe Commissioner Sullivan, who has done a tremendous amount of work in this particular item that's before you today. It's the memo, again, going to the FAA for the use of the lower airport property, which hadn't been used for airport operations in years and decades and such. Used for that for the storage or stacking and placement of those modular units, 36 modular units for the Heights apartment complex that will come and go. It's a fairly short period of time, and I believe we had already passed for a memorandum to go to the FAA, but of course leave it to the federal government to require about 18 volumes more of information and such. And actually, I would say that we've done pretty good. Commissioner Sullivan's been working with the FAA and such, and the information gathering and such, and with our assistance, we've done. It's been less involved than it could be, and I would say that we've done a pretty good fast track on this to be able to get it done. And so this is just coming to you again to reauthorize the memorandum going to the FAA in support of an interim use permit for the use of that site for the storage of those facilities. And I guess I just open it for any questions, or Commissioner Sullivan is also available for questions.
Yes, I'd like to just share some comments. We heard back from the FAA after we sent our memo back in June, and they requested some information, additional information, and also that we complete a CADEX, which is a categorical exclusion, so that we don't have to do a lengthy environmental process, since this is a 2-month or temporary period of time that we'll be storing the modules. But it gave us a list of actions and documents that we had to provide, which could potentially have impact on the environment. So that was completed. I appreciate that Assessor Thompson and that Director Nelson really helped substantially on this. We also used our mapping system in the county that we talked about earlier with our MIS report. So it really took a village to put this together, but appreciate the work of everybody on a short timeline.
Questions or comments? Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, we had met in a committee at the University of Minnesota Extension.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we were sharing how our days was going, and your day was rather early at 4:30 a.m. to get up and be able to negotiate this. So certainly appreciate the championing this effort on the part of Commissioner Sullivan and Tim and Bob, and we have an opportunity We know what we want, we know what we wanted to accomplish, and we ran into some things, and it changed on us, and so it required an effort to be able to do that. When people rise to the occasion and do it, you always want to applaud that, so thank you for those efforts. And with that, I would make a motion to approve the requested memo from the FAA regarding use of the Lower Airport property.
I'll support.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you very
For
much.
your work, too.
Thank you.
As you say, it takes a village. Moving on to item number 9, Attorney Peterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Back in 1980, I believe, the city of Grand Marais granted an easement for nominal consideration to the county, running along, sort of almost laterally along the Birchwood property in order for a steam line to be put in. The steam line, by the information that I was able to obtain, was not actually put in, so that there's nothing underground, there's no hazard or equipment being left there. There's no plans for a steam line to be built at any time in the future, because they are working to sell the property and kind of update and renew the housing there. They've asked for a release of the easement in order to clear title. Apparently, a portion of the building and maybe some of the parking encroaches on that easement. So the request before the board is to authorize and direct the signing of the release of easement.
Commissioner Gamble?
Can I just say so moved?
And I'll support.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Attorney Peterson. Moving on to Auditor.
Thank you, Madam
Brady,
Chair.
3 items.
Yeah, first one is, I guess I might call it a housekeeping issue. We've had a capital asset policy for a number of years. We first set it in around 2004, and we set that threshold at $5,000. And this is for the purpose of our financial statement, what you'd see in our audit. The first part of the audit since 2004 is what's called county-wide statements, and they're different from our typical fund accounting. It was required that we do a little, all counties, and I think this probably included cities too, they do show some what you call business type accounting, and the main thing there is depreciation. Counties don't, governments don't typically show depreciation of their assets. That hasn't been required, but since 2004, we do require it, and we show it in part of our audit. You'll see that in the first part of the audit. So this is so that if you're issuing bonds or anything else with entities that want to see that type of information, what is your actual, what's your real value of your assets, for example, the depreciated version. So that's what these assets are for, is for depreciation, basically. That's the main purpose of this. But values have changed over the last 21 years, and based on what we do, what everyone else experiences, it's time to change that. So we're not keeping track of very small assets that don't make much difference in that capitalization and depreciation. So just asking to change that number from 5,000 to 10,000 to recognize the increase in valuations over the last 21 years.
Any questions or comments? Commissioner Sullivan?
I really appreciate looking at this, and it has been a long time since we've looked at it. So given that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the change in the capitalization threshold of capital assets from $5,000 to $10,000.
I'll support.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just had a question, Brady. In in looking at what's best practices, in addition to the Minnesota Guide to Local Government Assets, any other?
Well, it was the Government Accounting Standards Board that required this of all counties back in 2004.
Yeah.
So that's where we primarily look, and that governs what's in our audited financial statement.
Right, and so we did that. Prior to that, we weren't depreciating
No,
assets, but then we did that, and as not-for-profit, being the executive director for a not-for-profit, we didn't depreciate either, but I said we should do it as a practice, because otherwise it's a false reality.
Yeah.
And you make a contribution to your depreciation, so you have money to replace when you need to replace. But in regard to this recommendation to go to the 10,000, is that coming as an industry best practice or from this Minnesota Guide to Local Government Assets?
it's what others are moving to.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, GASB doesn't have a particular standard.
Yeah.
But it's just the reality of
Yeah.
where everybody's moving
Sure.
based on valuations. We still keep track, we have a policy, we still keep track of assets,
Yeah.
5,000
Yeah.
and more. So it isn't changing that. This is just for that depreciation
Yeah.
portion.
Thank you.
So I have a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Second item is a request to sell some election equipment. We bought a new piece of central count recently, and we don't need all of the equipment that we currently have. We still do need these for the city, which votes in person. We need one at the front counter. And everybody is, this is new law, all counties will be doing direct balloting, or offering that next year. So we'll need one out front for that also, where people could actually enter their ballots into a machine. But even given that, we can give up at least one. We're being conservative, we're going to wait. We maybe could give up two. But we know we can give up one, and I checked with, it's a very, specific use. To put it on the market, your chances of getting a buyer are slim. But through MACO, Roseau County was interested, and we offered it to them for $2,500. These were about $5,000 when we purchased them many years ago. And I checked with the S&S, they thought that was a fair value. They, actually, when we bought the other piece of equipment, they offered us $500 if we wanted to give them our old DS200. So we said, no thanks at that time. And now others want them because they're direct balloting. So it's, our policy follows state guidelines, which is we can negotiate if personal property is less than 15,000. So this is a negotiated settlement.
Any questions? Commissioner Sullivan?
I'd like to make a motion to sell one excess DS200 ballot count machine to Roseau County for $2,500.
I'll support.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
The third item is a request to approve a professional services agreement with Stantec Consulting Services, Inc. You heard a lot about this morning from public comments when Tracy Benson was here. So we are the grantee for the money for this professional service. In fact, we're the grantee for $1 million to the Minnesota Department of Economic Development. $800,000 is for the transfer station, and $200,000 is for this planning and research for the Taconite Harbor property. And EDA, and that was specifically Teresa Vida, under their authority, searched out this grant and found this for both uses. It was available for that. And so we are the grantee. Originally, they've been working closely with EDA on this, as you heard. They did the RFP for this, but it made sense that since we're the grantee, that we also be the, either the part of the professional service contract, or else if EDA was going to sign it, then we should have an agreement with EDA to carry it out under the terms of the grant. So it made sense either way. Stantec was happy to make us party to the contract. And so this is the contract for that work to figure out what to do with the Taconite Harbor property.
Well, I attended the Schroeder Township meeting last week of 2 hours discussing all of this, and there's a lot of moving parts, as Tracy said, and I appreciate Commissioner Mills being the representative on the EDA. I'll represent the West End and the county when all this gets going, but I think we just have to be patient with what's going to happen, and tonight at their Schroeder meeting, they'll have further discussion about this too. So I'm glad that Supervisor Martinson separated this out to just be this contract with this company who's already starting quite a bit, and we don't know how long it'll be, maybe March, April, that they'll come up with some recommendations only, because we know Minnesota Power owns the land, so we have to, all the moving parts has to work together. So I appreciate your support on this particular item. Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciated Tracy giving the sort of overview this morning, because when I read the document just coming to us, and I think this came a little later on the agenda, that it was sort of like, well, there's some things you think this isn't new to us, and so she did give that perspective, which was helpful. The other thing is noting that Minnesota Power owns the land, so it's not ours entirely to do without. We need to know who the stakeholders are and their involvement. One thing in looking at this contract and what it does offer and doesn't offer, that if you read that, you find there's a number of things that you would think you'd want to know that would inform decisions or direction that are add-ons that would be over and above the charge at the $200,000. And I think certainly if this is a visioning, a planning, and just looking at options, it's one thing, and when you get to the point that you determine a direction, then there would be environmental impacts and things that would require some of the things that are identified in here, like watersheds and other issues that we certainly would have to address, that in this case it's an add-on expense. But it might be that this is sufficient as a contract for what we need to inform direction, with the understanding that those things will be addressed when we move forward, if that's sort of how you see it.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
they may be positioning itself, if there is further work, they might be available to do some of that work, if a plan comes to
True.
be. But-
It just, you look at those things and they're all add-on costs. If you take the $200,000 for this contract doesn't provide the things that we know that we need in its entirety, but it gets us to the point that we need, and then beyond that point, those things would be addressed. So until we know what the direction that we would be going, an environmental assessment or impact statement would not, it'd be premature.
Yeah.
Because we have to know where we're headed on it. So, yeah, and I looked at it on first read it that what was driving this is the fact that we've got money that we'll lose if we don't do something. But it coupled with the explanation from Tracy this morning, that it seems the timing of it makes sense, so.
And that is kind of driving why it's on the agenda today, because the grant expires the end of next June. And Stantec, in their document, they see it potentially going on to the end of next year, so there may have to be a grant extension asked for, or they'll have to speed up their timeline.
And the other thing Tracy brought out was that the relationship with the company is something that they have familiarity, so we're not started from scratch, so that's another advantage, I would say.
Yeah, and
So, I would make a motion, Madam Chair, to approve the agreement with Stantec Consulting to provide strategic planning for Taconite Harbor at a price not to exceed $200,000, subject to review and approval of our county attorney.
Support.
Any other questions or comments? I guess my comment would be that once we get rolling as the executive committee down there, I'll bring you updates. They'll also be having some public forums too, so as they move along, I'll let you know about that, but you'll be informed as we develop things to talk about, so.
Madam Chair, one other question I would have is that when you look at the advisory committee, how that advisory committee will be defined? In other words.
Supervisor Martinson is working on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice to know who those stakeholders, how they get identified, the criteria that's used to determine that, so that that advisory committee, that we set up a foundational group that makes sense, given, the opportunity that we have, so.
We'll work together on that,
Yeah.
Commissioner Mills.
Yeah, and Stantec has experience with this
Yeah.
and in the process and forming those groups, and they have some really solid recommendations as far as how an advisory committee should be made up, and getting multiple various perspectives and expertise, and also really emphasizing the positive side of things, someone who can really work with in a group and just try to be productive to an end there. So one other thing I wanted to point out is just the timeline that Stantec has identified on page 17 of this PDF. They've already done some preliminary work, getting a feel for some of the players and stakeholders, getting some history. We've met with them a number of times, but then also it has their final presentation way out into October of next year. So as Commissioner Storley said, it's a longer process, and we wanted to make sure that we had the people in the area that we need. So kind of, a lot of it will be done after the summer, after the busy season. Other thing I wanted to note is Minnesota Power's already kind of gone through this, and there's no buyers. And so now it's kind of what's going to happen. There's got to be some kind of public buy-in or investment for anything to happen. And there's a number of challenges why Minnesota Power has not been able to bring a private industry on board, and so we'll try to work through that. But I see it as an incredible opportunity for our county, and there's also a risk, with the loss of that tax base, trying to regain that back, and there's assistance with that, and so I just don't want to miss this opportunity, and I'm really excited for what we can envision there, and I think Mayor Benson did an excellent job of summarizing kind of where things have been and where we are now. So.
Commissioner Gramble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The other thing, I think it's important to note that the community is aware that we often hire consultants, and this is not, which requires taxpayer dollars. This is grant monies, so these are monies that are not taxpayer dollars directly. They're monies that have come because of resourcefulness in acquiring grant funds.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Brady, for all of that. We'll move on to item number 11 with Interim Administrator Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have, actually, this item is two separate agreements, but they're connected. We've been going through a lot of our processes upstairs in PHHS, and making sure we have redundancy in our supervisory and some of the other services we offer, particularly in the mobile crisis response area, where it requires 24/7, people being on call, which is obviously for many reasons very difficult for us to provide without having a lot more people. So we've been, and there has been in place for some time an agreement not an agreement, but an understanding with HDC that they would provide after-hours call support to help channel some of those things. And so these two agreements in front of us, kind of taken together, one is for HIPAA, a business associate agreement, which is, again, just between us saying that, you know, private information and medical information is going to be protected between these two organizations. That's the first one. The second one is actually the contract to purchase those services for after-hours assistance, as well as supervisory backup for us for that team. Apparently, this contract doesn't exist, even though this has been going on. So we're kind of putting some things together and making sure that all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed. So that's what these two contracts are for.
Any questions or comments? Then I'll hear a motion. Approve the agreements with the Human Development Center, HIPAA, and the purchase of service contracts for crisis response service. Commissioner Sullivan?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the two agreements between the Human Development Services and Cook County Public Health and Human Services, those being the HIPAA Business Associate Agreement and the purchase of the services contract for crisis response services.
Support?
Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So now I just have a few updates. Just really quickly on our capital improvement, our various capital projects. Work continues on transfer stations. I haven't been out to Hoagland for a few days, but they were putting up the fence. They just have to put up the little office building, probably another couple of weeks on that. So we're, I think, still looking at end of July, early August for an opening. And maybe we'll have some sort of a little grand opening out there or something so people can come out. And I know that Dustin Hanson at North Shore Waste has ordered the new, like roll-offs and different things there, so people will be able to bring all different kinds of solid waste, construction materials, electronics, mattresses, whatever, to that spot. So it's, I think, going to be a great opportunity for the people on the East End to have some more convenience. The bids for the Law Enforcement Center are due a week from today. So we'll learn more about how those bids come in. Hopefully they come in within the budget that's been presented, and we'll have an opportunity to look at those the following week on the 22nd at that meeting. And last, the basement project, and I don't know if you happen to see Kirsten's her report on WTIP, nice pictures of the basement project down there, a little interview with Brooke. He's kind of reluctant to be on the radio, but I said, get down there and do this. So he, I think he did a good job. But it really is very nice down there, and I think really the only thing we're waiting on right now is the furniture delivery. I suggested maybe a bunch of us with trucks could just drive to Duluth and get that, but he said, can you also install it? I said, well, probably not. So, but as soon as that stuff gets here, we'll be moving people downstairs. So it's going to be, it's nice.
What type of flooring?
They basically ground the cement, they smoothed it out, and then they sealed it and polished it. So it's the concrete floor, they just use that. It'll be much easier to maintain, and it will also be less susceptible to moisture and other things that created kind of the environment that was down there. And I really want to just acknowledge what a great project this is. I think for years we've been hearing we need an extra building, we need an extra building, we need to spend $12,000 or whatever it is on an extra building. And we had this space down there, and it seemed to be kind of not very usable, occupied by a lot of really old records and things getting moldy, and a few ghosts that are down there, as I'm told. And so it's really, we really reinvented that space, and Brooke looks at it and goes, you know, actually, we could put more of these down here. We could continue to expand this a little bit. So it gives us some options for a while to understand what our actual space needs are into the future. I mean, there may be some point where we do need a new building, but I don't think we're there yet.
And we needed to do a lot of that work anyway because of the mold, so it had dual purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
So just a great project all around, and I think it's going to serve us well. Kristen Treble-Halbersma was here yesterday and attended the MAT meeting, and it was just a really great opportunity for her to meet our directors and learn a little bit about them, put a face with the name, and hear what, you know, a little bit about their departments. She was asking questions about, tell me something that's unique about Cook County and about living in Cook County. And so some of the answers were kind of interesting, and a few of them were, one of them that really stuck out to me was Rowan's response, which he talked about, we made the switch, 15 years ago to administrative form of government. But that switch, we see bits and pieces of it, like we have an HR department now, and we have, somebody that's coordinating our agendas a little bit different, and we see bits and pieces, but we see other parts that still haven't happened very well. We look at a department like MIS, and we see strategy and process and policy that's within those departments, and many of our departments have had that for a long time, because they operated more in those silos. And where we haven't completely realized the whole opportunity of the administrative form of government is having those policies and processes and strategies that reach over the entire organization and connect us, particularly around HR and some of those other kinds of things. So it would really help us be a better organization. So we had that little bit of a conversation, and I think she heard it, and I think that's going to be something she focuses on along with culture. So very excited to have her here. We're meeting virtually for the next several weeks until she gets here, for a couple hours a week, an hour or two a week, to go through different things. And I think once she gets here, she will hit the ground running, and I'll get back to my new puppy as soon as I possibly can. So a couple of other shout outs. One is, I would like to add to what folks said about kudos to the staff for supporting the effort at the airport. I mean, there were a lot of departments involved in that, besides the assessor, looking at wetlands from Land Services, we had the GIS involvement, and the highway department was involved in this throughout, trying to find a route for these trucks to go with the Gunflint trail construction. So, I think sometimes people don't see how good our staff is at addressing something very quickly and being helpful to community when they need something like that. So I just really am glad you both acknowledge them, and I want to as well. Also, I got a letter in the mail, where did it go? Something that the Sheriff's Department, I have it, there it is. It's from the Post Board, which is the Peace Officer Standards and Training Board that regulates, their job is to do occupational regulatory agency stuff with sheriff's departments and law enforcement department. And they sent a letter that said, on 6/26/2025, a Post Board Standards Coordinator conducted a review of the Cook County Sheriff's Office. After a comprehensive review of their records concerning mandated employee training and department policies, I'm pleased to inform you that your police department passed the review. So just pass that on as information. I'll have Jana put that in with the minutes or with the agenda. And last, I learned this morning that Plowman Dimitrov just heard that he was voted to be the Assistant Coach of the Year for the state of Minnesota for his efforts in high school coaching with the ski team. So that's a pretty big deal. It's across all sports in the state of Minnesota in high school. So when you see Plowman, make sure you congratulate him on that accomplishment. I think it speaks to who he is in a lot of ways, and the way he helps people and supports the community. So congratulations to Plowman. That's what I got.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to commissioner reports, commissioner concerns. Yesterday, I did attend the NACO presentation on now what do we do with our situation with just the updating of the reconciliation, what it means for the counties. Anybody else able to do that? The long and the short of it is we should start thinking about it, but I think the governor is maybe going to call a special legislative session for us, for them to start dealing with the SNAP and the Medicaid and all of that. It really doesn't go into effect until later next year, and a lot of it is even further out, but we need to start and listen to what our state is going to guide us. We're one of only 10 states where the state is more involved in our Medicaid programs and SNAP. So that was the basis of the presentation. I did take a picture because they were doing it, slide by slide, and I thought, well, I can't write this fast, so I took pictures of some of it. But the big shift is just cut back in critical services, continue to deliver services as best we can with what we have to deal with. Do we raise certain fees? Do we delay or cancel infrastructure and resilience investments? And just how to absorb all of this. So, I mean, on the one hand, it was positive in that we're starting to think about it, and our governor is too. So we'll just wait for some further direction right now. Anybody else have anything to share with committees or meetings? Commissioner Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our Firewise group met at the end of the month, and we focused on talking about evacuation and sheltering in place and kind of looking at things in a new way. So our fire chiefs, along with Sheriff Eliason, will be leading some changes in that area. I had an opportunity to attend for a half day the AMC Solid Waste meeting. It was held virtually. It was cut short due to the Hortmans lying in state at the Capitol. But we did have the MPCA attend with us. They shared tons of material. I'll be forwarding to all of you the materials that they shared. And we did not get an opportunity, as we had planned, to talk about policy and action for the 2026 upcoming session. So we are going to be meeting in the Twin Cities in person on July 23rd. And so I will be attending that. We're going to tour some waste facilities, a variety of different types, and there will be some opportunities to attend tours in rural communities, which will be of high interest to us as well. Attended with Commissioner Storley the Y ribbon cutting for the new playground. That new playground was the result of grants from the Lloyd K. Johnson, IRRB, and DEED. We also had the Cook County Invasives team meeting. Commissioner White was there as well and just did an overview of the activities and events that are coming up remaining this summer. We had the brewery event already, and there'll be a Protect, Plant, and Pull activity up on the Gunflint Trail coming up on July 23rd. Devil Track Lake Association met last night, and it was really interesting that one of their discussions tied in with what Rowan Watkins shared with us. There's an ability to contact everybody within a fire district. And so one of the things they wanted to do is pull new mailing labels and make sure they got information out to all the people that were part of the Maple Hill Fire Department, welcome new people, talk about how they can donate and assist with our volunteer firefighting. initiatives. And lastly, again, just kudos to all the departments that helped with the airport CADX getting off. I will send that off this afternoon. I'm hoping by tomorrow that I will hear back from what has continued to be really positive remarks in Teams meetings and phone conversations with the FAA.
Anyone else? Commissioner White?
Well, I attended the Prevention Coalition, that newer, not that new, but efforts to empower our youth to make better, good decisions and to share about drugs and suicide prevention. So that continues on. It was a 1-year anniversary that they've been going. And so that's very positive. Then tomorrow is the Zoom Northeast Minnesota Transportation Alliance, and that's about transportation, and that's a good one. And then on Thursday, the North Shore Management Board will be up in Grand Portage, and that's talking about the shoreline protection from, well, part of this end of St. Louis County all the way to the Canadian border at this point. And the host will be Grand Portage this time around. So I look forward to that one especially.
Speaking of climate change, I attended on Zoom a climate change forum by 3 different representatives from United States. One was from Mississippi, one was from Rhode Island, and one was from Wisconsin, all bordering on water.
Yeah.
And the things that they have done, some of them have been at this since 2013, 2014, and they showed pictures of how being so close to the water and what that does to the ground and where people want to live and put their homes, and places where the whole bank is slid down on this side, but the other side was planted and supported with trees and shrubs, and it was intact. So it was really an interesting conversation. I just listened. I didn't participate very much, but I might want to send you that picture.
Well,
for
and
the
that
shoreline, of Michigan.
And they talk about the shoreline of Lake Superior and trying to you want a view, but don't cut those trees and shrubs because, and they identify places where somebody, undefined, unknown, has done that on their own, and then you see the erosion from the lake undercutting because there's not a network of roots to hold things in place. And just going east from Grand Marais, we have spots on the North Shore where someone has cut down everything to have a more visible view.
It's a concern, that's for sure. Anyone else? Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. There was a meeting, St. Louis County, Lake County, and Cook County. Bob Thompson was there, and this was a follow-up relative to the Ty Blacknick, and just where do we go from here? And it's something that continues to be a challenge. There's a lot of information that's forthcoming as to how the determinations are being made, and so it basically was a strategy meeting on how we're going to proceed. And it seems to be a delicate balance because of the uniqueness of Ty Blacknick, and yet wanting to be sure that in good faith, using common sense, that we are being compensated because of its effect to us. And so I think it's certainly an important issue. PILT is an important issue to us, given the amount of government land that is comprised in these 3 counties. And so we need to be advocates. We need to approach it respectfully but forthrightly, and hope that you have people that are listening and that there's support from the legislature and those that can influence decision-making in this regard. But it's something, because it affects us so financially, that want to continue to move forward on. So at this point, it's getting information and trying to position ourselves so you sort of have some weight to your argument, if you want to put it that.
Well, after an hour and a half of conversation, it ended up that one of the lawyers in St. Louis County is going to look at some of the paperwork, because if we go out and hire another appraiser, we want to know the details of what the last one was.
Well,
So that's
yeah.
where we're kind of waiting now to see what they say about the
And part of that
contract.
problem, because it was part of our discussion, is that if the commitment was in good faith that, go ahead, you do an appraisal based upon best practices, and then we'll make a comparison. But the way that the document is written with the DNR is that you have to do it by using our matrix. So in other words, if it's going to be in the context of what they define, you can't follow best practices, you have to follow their direction. So if you follow somebody down a trail that they lead you on, you're going to end up at the end result the same. So we're trying to negotiate that. But again, fundamental to any discussion is if you're operating in good faith using common sense.
Okay, anybody else? We'll move on then to upcoming meetings, which we always have a lot of meetings coming up. And then we do have July staff anniversaries to recognize. We have Cody DeWanderer from Highway Department, 1 year. Andrew Dahlstrom, Recycling Center, 3 years. Christina Matson, Public Health and Human Services, 3 years. Matt Niesheim, Highway Department, 3 years. Sean Smith, Highway Department, 3 years. Plowman Dimitrov, Public Health, 7 years. Britta Muse, LEC, 8 years. Dagmar Smith, Public Health, 9 years. Christopher Schrupp, LEC, 12 years. Brady Power, Auditor Treasurer, 34 years. And then we have a milestone anniversary. We have Mitch Everson from Land Services, 15 years. Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Brady. Thank you, everyone, for all of your good services. And there are no other business. We will be adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
The rest of them add up to 49 versus 34. What does that say? I don't know.
That's why you're the auditor.